Yeah.
You guys
Yeah.
can't see this, but it's preparing the link from Zoom now to YouTube, and it says it's setting up your meeting. And now it's done. It's directed. Okay, so we should be good now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This
You
is
guys can't see this, but it's preparing the link from Zoom now to YouTube, and it says it's setting up your meeting. And now it's done. It's directed. Okay, so we should be good now.
okay. Hi, everyone. This
You
is
guys can't see this, but it's preparing the link from Zoom now to YouTube, and it says it's setting up your meeting. And now it's done. It's directed. Okay, so we should be good now.
okay. It's a glitch, Marie. Somehow. This is
This, but it's preparing the link from Zoom now to YouTube, and it's setting up your meeting.
one giant step for man. One small step. It's a glitch, Marie. Somehow.
We're on a diabolical link.
One giant step for man.
Goodness.
Okay. I have no idea what the heck's going on.
We're allowed to laugh, right?
Obviously,
Yes, please.
yeah, we obviously need help.
It's fine.
I mean, we could try it again if just like I won't talk, you know.
Can you either text or call May and just tell her what's going on? And if there's something we're doing that's obvious, you know, that she can
Let me see if she can come in.
troubleshoot.
She didn't understand what was happening.
Just tell her there's a feedback, an audio feedback when we go live.
You know, we're gonna miss these days.
I already miss them.
I do
So
too.
do I.
Also, I see only that this there is a short snippet on YouTube now. That's what I see, and then it changes, and then another movie comes. So it's playing actually already a recording, which is about 10 seconds or so.
Oh,
That's what it does. But we are not now live. We are out.
can these things be
We can
erased?
be ourselves now.
Can they be what?
Can we
Erased?
be
It
ourselves
can
now?
be erased, but I do have to remind you that we only have 7 people subscribing, so don't worry.
Yeah, that you can edit whatever is, you know, is whatever's out there. You can get rid of it.
I see 2 different recordings from this morning.
I did one recording just to test it, and then that might have been the rest.
So, what should we do? We can just,
It's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to?
well,
mean-
we're gonna have to work out this kink at some point. We don't necessarily have to work it
We
out.
are live now.
I'm sorry?
We are live now.
It still says live on my screen.
I'm seeing it on YouTube live.
Oh, you are?
Mm.
Okay. So let's just move ahead. We are Art Matters New York. I'm Mark Saffin. I'm here with Hans Vici
Hi, everyone.
and our class, Marie, Barbara, Sophie, Marcia, Phyllis, Leslie, and Aldona. Hello. Glad to have you all. Glad to see you all. We're going to look at some work today by, first, we're going to look at something by Phyllis, and then we're going to look at work that has been in progress by Leslie. And so why don't we just get right into it? So,
Mm.
Wow.
So, so this is a work in progress. It's not complete yet. The first layer, the colored layer, is intact, but I'm searching for a second layer, which I have used an acetate paper for. The black lines are acetate. And if I haven't had time to work on it very much, I'm going to try different black applications on the colored background. Whenever I see something, I often see faces. And when I saw my abstract painting, I saw a face. So that is like the origin of the idea. Phyllis, is it watercolor?
Let me just interrupt. We're talking to Phyllis. This is Phyllis Gutman.
Yeah, that's me.
Yes, just want to make that clear. Okay, continue. Go ahead.
Who do you want to continue? Me?
No, someone asked a question.
Well, the question was, is it watercolor? It's gouache. Just the color itself is all gouache. And I think the black part is, I guess, a marker, a black marker. But I don't intend to use a black marker over it. I would use probably paint to draw in the face, if indeed that's what I eventually will end up with.
So you're using the acetate just because you don't want to commit, right?
Exactly.
You're just
Part of
exploring
the-
ideas.
It's part of the exploration is using the acetate to see
Right.
which ways I want to go. And this is just the beginning.
So for me, that's, it's a surprise because your work always, I've always experienced your work as being very spontaneous. And I didn't, so is this something new that you're doing?
No, I do it all the time, but
Okay.
I didn't have time to present to you a finished work. So
Phyllis,
this.
may I say something? I like the piece, even you say it's a work in progress, and I'm now very, very worried what if it's in progress. I'm not sure if it's getting better.
I don't need. I'm not sure either.
So if I could order a stop order, stop work order, or how you say. I think I would really. I like the piece because it's quite sort of in a balance of. It's in a way dense, but it's also in a way very light. I like that. It's very for me it's done. I love it.
Well, actually, Hans, in a week or so, I might come to that conclusion, but I need time to dwell on it. So
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Can you put it away for a week instead of
exactly
working on it?
It's not being touched right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can do it, just as is. It might appeal to me next week.
Well, so I have a question. So right now, it's an acetate on top of a painting.
Yes.
So, Hans, you say you love it, but do you accept that? Would you accept that, like an acetate sitting on top of the painting, or would she have to transfer that line in some way, or do another line, to make the painting of one piece, as it were? Or is it okay that it's two elements?
My question is, can you recognize that it's acetate?
No,
paper?
not as we're viewing it on, on video, on Zoom. No, we cannot tell.
No, I think it should be one piece, yeah.
Yeah.
It is one piece. It will be one piece.
Mhm, okay.
How will it be one piece?
I will draw the final
Mm.
outline of the face onto the
Mm.
painting.
Right.
That's how it'll be one piece.
So you would do an approximation of this line?
I can copy the line. I can do that.
So it would be a copy of the line.
Yeah,
I'm just getting very technical here
yeah.
because I'm trying to understand exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think it's very important because you see, because it's so abstract, but when you look, when you look at these two lines where I say there is the eyes, so you see on the left side, it's really, you get this white a highlight almost from an eye. Do you see that?
Mm.
Which is very precise. So if this line would be on the wrong place, then you destroy
Well,
that effect.
It
Of
will
course,
not be on the wrong place.
So you have to be very careful.
I know that.
because
So-
otherwise it's
That's why I put the line there.
Yeah.
Because it was the right place.
okay, perfect.
Mm.
Thank you, Hans. That was very good. How about the lips? Did I did the, what do you think of that? Maybe the nose, I don't know.
Right.
And what I do like about these kind of lines are that they feel very spontaneous.
Right.
And
Well,
to get it to look that spontaneous on the piece itself is going to be a problem.
That's precisely why I'm asking how you
Yeah,
intend
It's
to.
going to be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's something, Paul Clay, for example, did a lot of transfers.
Yes.
Where he had some technique where he was transferring lines rather than drawing them directly, and they have a certain kind of quality.
Mm.
They're fuzzy, or but they have a quality. And I think Warhol did that too on his drawings. That's something you can do. So you can figure out a way to transfer
Yeah.
it.
It
Right?
has to be
Like put a piece of
transferred
you
precisely. And
could,
that's the problem.
you could create the equivalent of a kind of a carbon paper,
Yes.
right? And then trace over this line. There's things you can do, but
Yeah.
they're all
But
multiple.
at this
Right.
point, it has to be done precisely if I choose this
Yeah.
space.
If you do, may I suggest you could also tape it up to a window. And if you wanted to carbon copy, as it were, you put the acetate up first on the window. If you don't have a light box, then put the painting over it. But that's not you. You could probably just do it spontaneously if that's what you choose to do ultimately. But I use my window as a light box because I don't have
Well,
it.
actually, I do have a light box
So that
someplace.
I would love to see it without the outline of the face. I love the colors and I just think I think it might work without that very well. But that's just an opinion.
Well, Barbara, I think it doesn't have enough feet on it for me, just as a,
Hmm,
it has.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
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 Actually, I can tell you the origin of the idea to show, just to sort of trace the way it was worked. My daughter gave me some of the small orchids. I think they're dendrobium orchids. And they are the most beautiful color of magenta that you have ever seen. And so,
what is it, Phyllis?
pardon me,
What is it?
dendrobium orchids, those tiny orchids,
Oh, yes.
they're magnificent. And the shade of magenta is just breathtaking. You could spend your whole day looking at them. And I know I don't want to draw any more orchids. I'm all orchided out. So
Get it? I get it.
I started, it's just a color concept that I started with.
Yes.
And somehow I do end up oftentimes with a piece looking like a face to me. And
Yeah.
this was a perfect face.
Yeah.
So I put in the lines. So that's the way the work evolved, if you know what
Right.
what I mean.
I see.
But
Okay.
as a painting in itself, it's too mushy. It doesn't have substance to me, and that's why I put the lines in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a matter of putting colors on paper without a specific focus. Beautiful colors put together, but not, it needs something else. I think you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
And doing the acetate is what, I'm surprised you use acetate because you usually do it on your photograph.
I
and
do
then you
use
play with it.
I do use acetate. I have a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
big pad full.
Yeah, I use it all the time. It's
Not
just,
that I select it, but I do use it in the process.
yeah, just to try out different
Well-
things without committing to them.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting, and we'll come back to this and we'll look at it when you have, moved forward and resolved whatever issues that may come up. It'll be interesting to take a look and see how you resolve, what you want. And so,
That's the excitement of it, I guess.
Yeah.
definitely.
Mhm.
Process.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Nice feeling. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to look at, I'm just going to go through these and start at the top. These are Leslie, belong to Leslie, and it's a project that she's been involved with. We've been looking at these for a little while. And if you want to give very, very briefly, tell us what the project is and where we are now.
Okay, so this is a project that is going to an exhibition in Israel, which is basically about the original tabernacle, which is thought of as the Mishkan or tent that Moses took through the desert for 40 years. And I did not know anything about the tent, actually, so I had to go educate myself. The biggest, subject matter about this project is that this is a collaboration. I actually asked my collaborator to come on with me. She wasn't available at this time, nor I think is she ready to. We both have really just need to kind of put this aside for a little bit, but we did just finish it and it did leave. And these are pictures. This, of course, is not the finished one, the photo that's up there now, but I just want to say that the actual building, planning, and creating of this actually is way more to me than the actual finished object. So the actual finished object is very temporary. I'll never see it again. And I don't even know what I feel about it. But the actual process was an extreme amount of problem solving with very tight parameters, a lot of collaboration, a lot of compromise. every solution had a problem. And a lot of learning, because I have never built a structure out of wood like this, and I have never sewed anything in my life except for a button. So it was, looking back, and a great experience. I'm glad I did it. It was tough. It was tough, but a lot of fun. And I'm very excited to share it with you, because sometimes when you're so involved with something so intensely, you actually kind of lose a little bit of your way with it, or your feeling for it.
Yeah, you lose your objectivity.
So anyway, so this was kind of the frame of it, which basically shows the solution for the top and the solution for the base in terms of how the structure, because the parameters were so strict, because this has to come apart and mail flat to Israel, and it has to be extremely light. And more importantly, we won't be there to put it together. So it had to be very, very simple, very few tools. This structure requires no tools except for one single tiny wrench. So,
And this is not the piece that is the final piece. This is not the piece that you sent.
it is, but it
So this
does,
is the actual piece.
this is the actual structure, yes.
Okay. How big is it?
It's 6 feet by 4. Well, it's actually 6 feet tall, and the base is 4 by 6.
Okay.
Okay.
You just tell me if you want me to move forward through the
Yeah,
slides.
no, you can move forward, because that's fine. So this is a little bit of an abstract photo, because I like to take abstract photos of all my art, actually. It's just something I like to do, and it's kind of just looking through a panel once the fabric is on. What we did is we created a spiral structure, and then we mimicked that spiral with the fabric, with sheer and less sheer fabric, or more opaque fabric. So there was a lot of kind of symbolism in the spiral, and we really pushed that, because we have that both in the entry, we have it in the shape of the structure, we have it in the fabric that goes around and up into the ceiling. So this doesn't show a full view of that, it's just an abstraction of that. So you can move up if you'd like. Again, similar, like just an abstract view of the simplicity of the structure. I originally didn't want any of these metal crossbars, but it was inevitable. And it worked out that it really worked well, actually. So, you know, what's interesting is we both recognize that if we had been doing this not as a collaboration, it might have looked completely different. Probably would have looked completely different if we had done it as individuals. So that's very interesting to me. What you're seeing here is the floor, the inside of this structure represents what was the Holy of Holies in the Mishkan. And the Holy of Holies was basically where they kept it was the covenant of the ark. Okay, so the tent had kind of two meanings. It was a tent of meaning and a tent of meeting, both.
Yes.
And you know, the outside tent was a place of meeting. The inside tent was more of a place of meaning, because that's where the commandments were kept, and only Moses and his relatives were direct descendants were allowed in there, or the high priests. And so what we did is we made a Mishkan for the individual, so that when you went into this small tented place, you actually became the covenant yourself. You were your own, you were that. So what I did is the inside of the hexagon has these hexagon cork tiles, is what those are. They're cork. And I sprayed them and rubbed them with gold. And then I made these little wooden boxes. I made these little wooden boxes that hold little scrolls, and there's 2 of them. So you can actually write if you want to in there, and you could take a scroll, leave a scroll, whatever you want to do. We originally wanted to use seeds because we wanted some aspect of nature, but this ended up,
Can I go back to this and
sure.
is that in here or not? We're not seeing it.
No, this is just strictly the structure. So this is kind of a shot when it's finished, and I'm taking a picture of the floor inside, and there's two of these little boxes inside.
Mm.
So they don't have to even be inside. I mean, I told the curators they can put the boxes outside of the piece so that people can actually use them if they want, because we probably will not have people go in it in the actual exhibition. Here's a view of looking down in the floor with the two boxes just placed inside. So you can see that the cork floor on the inside of the tent is gold, and the cork floor that is in the entryway is not gold, representing the difference between the Holy of Holies and the outer courtyard of the Mishkan.
Quite a journey for you.
Yeah.
What are the dimensions of those boxes?
The boxes are
How
small.
small are they?
They're pretty small. The boxes are like 5 by 5 inches. They're very small.
Because I'm seeing the gauze around it. I'm assuming this is part of the sculpture.
The fabric you see around it, that's the entryway. So that's the fabric hanging in the entryway.
Okay, so now so they are very small, right?
Yeah, they are small. The scrolls are very small.
Mm-hmm.
It's just meant to, if you wanted to, I mean, we're not really suggesting anyone do anything in there, basically. It's basically free play. So.
But if you wanted to, you could take a scroll and write something in it.
You can, and you could leave it in the other box. So one is kind of take box, one is kind of a leave box. It's
see.
really whatever you feel like doing.
Can I just ask, is there any interpretation that goes with this, like text next to the piece, so that people can read about it, or are viewers or people meant to understand it by themselves without any interpretation?
Well, I want to answer that, but Mark, I think it would be a good idea to show the whole piece too.
Is that the first? Just go back to the first.
No, don't you have the finished piece? Yeah, go up and see the rest while I'm answering Sophie. So, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yes, so we do have a statement which will be on the wall next to the piece, which says a lot of the things I just said, probably a little bit better. And the only thing we really don't explain is something personal, which is we named this piece Acento with a lowercase a. And Acento is actually a Ladino word. And Ladino is a language that's a Spanish Judaica language that doesn't really have any sort of, it doesn't really have a written language. It's almost like
It's an oral tradition.
yeah, it's an oral tradition, almost like a Spanish Yiddish is my best.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Spanish, Yiddish, there's German.
So the reason that we ended up using that is that my collaborator partner is from Colombia. And so for her, her grandmother spoke a little Ladino, which she wasn't even sure why. They were not Jewish, but she had a lot of Jewish friends. And so for her, it was a personal tie-in. And it worked for both of us because it means to sit. And I'm a meditation instructor, so, you know, we both had different ways that really fit in for us. The other thing that we had in common was while we were working on this, we had kind of an emotional connection to like a dysphoria of sorts because, you know, she's an immigrant in this country. So So there's an issue of home for her. And for me, there's an issue of home because I never lived in a place long enough that I felt like was my home. So I never have like had a hometown, let's say, to go back to, even though I was born in America. So we both had different kind of emotional connections. But there is a statement on the wall, and we also will have a short piece on the wall of how to use the Mishkan, which is very simple because basically it's self-explanatory. The thing that might be left out is the floor, the fabric you see outside, which starts on the other side. I think, is there one more picture, Mark, under this?
Yes.
Yeah, so the floor wraps around it, and the red design that you see on the box and on the floor is actually a graphic that I created based on the map that the Mishkan traveled through the desert. So that's kind of, I took that map and I made a graphic out of it and kind of made a design out of it. And so that's what's on the floor and on the boxes.
It's an abstract
Interesting.
Google.
What?
Abstract Google.
Ah,
I have a question. I just noticed the two arrowheads. I don't know what they are at the top. Are they part of the design?
Well, we just, honestly, well, last minute thing we did was we wanted to put, last minute, we decided the top of the poles needed like some kind of finial, and it was so last minute. And Alex made those very quickly. And I had wanted her to do more of I wanted her to actually make Mylar origami pieces, because that's her practice, is work on Mylar and a lot of geometric shapes. And I know it's a very sharp contrast to the fabric and all the natural color and everything, but the transparency I thought worked, but I could not talk her into it. I asked her to humor me and just try it, but this was her contribution, and I mean, it's fine. They're just
Well,
finials.
To her credit, I like them.
Yeah.
I do too.
I think it adds something to the piece because possibly of the contrast, the juxtaposition,
Yeah.
the geometry. It's almost, a little bit, it has a little bit of, I don't want to say threatening, but it looks very sharp, which, many of the images of God, particularly at that time, were that it was, something that could be, the power could be, what's the word? Intimidating, formidable.
I mean,
I
liked it for the same reasons, Mark. I thought it gave it some kind of strength and some kind of meaning and some kind of finishing. And there's a lot of geometry to this tent. So.
And it also takes something that's very ephemeral and abstract and gives it something very concrete, very
To
concrete, as a kind of a symbol. These, I guess, these, what they're obelisks. It's something that we've seen before, iconographically. So it gives it something, even though it's maybe esoteric, it still is something somewhat familiar. And the gold as well, also has a
holy
suggestion
to it.
So I think it actually adds to the piece.
I do too.
To me, it looks
I
a
like
little
it.
bit like the handles on a scroll.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, that
Actually,
was another,
almost
that was
like the
another-
finials on a Torah.
Well, that was the other reference that
Yeah,
that was
they
the
were.
other reference we had thought of when we put them there, is
That's
we have
exactly
these
right.
rods,
Yeah.
and when you have a Torah, you have the handles on the end. So
Yeah.
that kind of also was great because, originally that's what the tent held.
So, just going back, I like this photograph a lot because somehow I get to see the whole piece, and what it is. And I like the lightness of it. And it almost has, you know, as just a structure, as a piece, as a thing, it isn't. I like how light it is. It's not so serious, even though the description has a lot of seriousness. The piece itself is really quite interesting and quite light, you know, spatially, the material, the flow, the movement of space. So just,
Yes.
you know, aesthetically, in aesthetic terms, spatial terms, whatever texture, etc., I think it's very successful.
Thank you.
I do too. I really like, I like how when you go in, you kept the top portion, you know, open so that you could see through it, but the bottom part, and I think that was one thing that you were trying to do. And I think that that's successful. And I think it feels kind of sacred and holy. I think it's interesting. And it feels kind of flimsy and solid at the same time, you know, which is something that you would kind of expect that they've used, you know, for all that time. For the
Yeah.
10 Commandments. I think you nailed it. I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you did also. I think it's very interesting. Tremendous amount of work and really beautiful results.
I have a question, Leslie. The drawing with the red lines,
Yes.
why doesn't it go all over the whole thing surrounding? It's only on one side there.
It goes
But
over.
why?
Oh, you mean why it doesn't come out more this way?
Yes.
I'm not really sure why we truncated it there. I think that we intended it as like a sort of walkway into the tent and maybe thought about, you know, that it might be too much to walk entirely around it, but I would actually prefer to walk all the way around it myself. But for some reason we made that decision and I'm not sure why. It's a good question. I mean, at one point we had the design on the solid fabric of the tent itself going up the wall. We ended up changing it to being on this fabric on the floor because Alex was doing these beautiful drawings of it. And she was doing these drawings when we were almost finished. And she had the drawing sitting on a shape on the floor. And I said, Alex, I really like that it's sitting on something. So can we put it on something? So that was the first decision because I really liked how she just had some kind of shadow or area around the drawing. And then we were going to put the design on the wall. And she said, well, maybe we should just put it on the floor. And I said, I like that idea too. So you know, we both just kept feeding off each other and coming up with this. But I think it would have been nice a little bit to go around the whole thing as well. So
Yeah, I agree. Also in an abstract, asymmetrical way, I think it would have made it a little bit more complete. But it's a wonderful representation. It's ephemeral and yet it's spiritual. It's a lovely, very interesting piece. And I think you succeeded. Do people actually would be encouraged to go in there?
I don't think so. We had talked about it, but
it would fall apart.
We're too worried about it because in the working on it, we had to take it apart and put it together many, many times. And we had the curators come and take it apart and put it together. And we took it apart and put it together 3 times for an instruction video. So every time you do that, it's wear and tear. And the wood is actually, in order to keep it shippable and light, we had to use very lightweight wood.
Yeah.
So it's literally craft wood. And it's also, in order to make it simple to put together, there's only 4 things you have to do. That's it.
Oh, gee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What are the red lines made of? Are they tape? Or
No,
is-
that's paint. They're painted, and the map starts out small and kind of gets larger as it goes around. But it's
Mhm.
basically a repeat of one graphic.
Mm. Were there other submissions as well? In the
Yeah,
final, I mean, are there other?
yes, there's I think about 12 artists or so, and there is a catalog which I'm happy to share, which will be ready very shortly.
I see.
Good. That'd be, and you were all given the same assignment to do what
Yes.
was done?
Yes. I think what's really funny to us is that years ago, I think it was like 5 years ago at this point, when this idea started from these curators, and the first thing the first project we came up with was a garment, and we ended up turning it into this kind of pod that hung from a tree, that like a prayer pod or something, and it was very geometric and very cool. But when we read our first proposal, we really didn't like it, and so we ended up going in this direction. But looking back, the pod was kind of interesting as well, so it's kind of fun to see.
It's all about the process and the growth and the understanding that you accrue from flying off the wall.
Yeah.
Mm,
Beautiful piece, very lovely.
yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And very meaningful.
Mm,
I appreciate the feedback, because it's just been the two of us in the studio quite a bit.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, with a person who is not familiar with the traditions of Jewish people understands something like this. It's perfect in an Israeli museum. It would be perfect in a Jewish museum. But you know what I'm saying? Does it have meaning to others? Does it stand alone completely as a sculpture?
I think it has to, and I think it does. I think as much as, we try to explain things, and as much as things may even take their form as a result of certain ideas, what we're left with in the end is something that we just have to behold with our own eyes and our own experience and our own sensibilities, and have it mean whatever it means to us. And so I think that this form, just in and of itself, with the finials and so on and so forth, which is what I was saying, even the geometric design that we see occasionally, the lightness, it's somewhat informal. It looks like it was just, put up, because, maybe, the Jews were in flight, at the time.
Perpetual
Couldn't
flight.
build anything, solid. So all of that stuff has a kind of a meaning to people, right? They don't have to know the specific story of this or where it came from. If you're interested, it's there. You can read it, but reading about it is not what the artwork itself is about,
That's true.
right? The artwork itself is about your visceral experience, your imagination, and so on when you confront it. That's what an artwork does.
Yes. And
Right?
it has
So-
tremendous meaning. It speaks to me very directly.
Yeah.
And if I may, I think spiritual and religious, the spiritual should be on a higher level than the religion.
Yes.
You to understand, it
Yes.
goes over religion. And that's what we look in an artwork. We are looking where is the spirit, where we, and here comes a little bit my critique. I would like to have it more amalgamated with these different things. I could imagine these red lines, they could be also made by fabric, sort of like cords or whatever, and maybe going into that object too, and then you get even a feeling this could be, of course, like this 40 years Moses thing, but it could be also our blood system of a body, you know, the veins and arteries, or I don't know what, you know, and so on. So for me, it has a bit too many different materials which sort of are put together, but not really. For me, it could be more a whole thing going on. And with this, and these two things on the top, you know, I could imagine they could be also for me candles. You know, it is for me. It looks a bit like medieval, more medieval. Yeah. It gives me suddenly more a medieval touch. Yeah. You know, of war and revenge, or I don't know what. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's a great piece. You know, it's wonderful to look at, and it's a very interesting piece, and it's very inspiring also. It's very well done, you know.
Yeah.
And therefore, you know, it opens my mind, and I start to fantasize, you know, and so on. It's
Yeah, I think I want to follow up just with what Hans said. I completely agree with regard to the red lines on the paper as a separate element. I think it could be more integrated somehow in the actual piece. And, you know, when you think about, I know, you know, some Jewish, you know, the religious implements they use, like a, you know, prayer shawl, a tallis, okay? It has little threads and it's knotted, and those knots all mean something, right? Yeah. So it would be interesting if those red lines were actually knotted into the material in some way, red threads, you know, with, you know, whatever you want it to mean, whatever it represents, that's up to you. But it would be interesting if it were more organic, if there was an organic connection, you know, the materials, just like, you know, the prayer shawl. And there's other things in the Jewish religion also that are, you know, have integrated, you know, multiple meanings as an object. And yeah, that point is well taken.
You know, it's interesting because we had discussed sewing the lines on. We had discussed many of these things. This is not, I'm not saying this because it's an excuse, but we had such a tight amount of time to get this done. We had very little time. So
yeah,
a lot of times we made a decision and, you know, went with it. I also feel for me, because I never really studied very much about Judaism. And for me, it's less of a religious piece, and more of just a cento, just a place to sit and be. For me, that's what it is. I think, you know, I'm happy with it in the sense that I think despite some of its despite the fact that it could have gone further in certain ways, I am proud of it, and I do think that there is a lot of different kinds of meanings in it, and a lot of different kinds of. I just think it's really for the individual. So the whole idea is you going in it and sitting and just being, because you know, we're making a veil of space that is interesting to me, because when you're in there and you're just sitting, you're kind of not separate from everything, but yet you have these sheer layers of fabric. There are layers of fabric hanging in there, and so you're kind of having the illusion of separating the mundane from the spirit.
Very well said. I love what you said about the veil of space.
Yeah.
That's a perfect title for this.
But I love, I love also because I also really like, Hans, your reference in terms of like veins and that type of thing. That's very interesting to me. I'm very happy you gave that feedback because that's really a cool thought.
Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing this with us. And I think let's go back to the screen. And we'll take a look in the future at how these pieces evolve, where they go, what they do, and various reactions to them. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. And until then, thanks for joining us.